Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at Tempur-Pedic.com.
Some read self-help books, others use meditation. At New Balance, it's believed that peace can be found with a run. The lessons learned while running your race are a blueprint for overcoming obstacles and achieving balance in life. Go beyond the run at newbalance.com.
Hey, and welcome to the HA Podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, the host of this podcast, the founder of the HA Society, and an HA recovery coach who has walked wherever you currently are. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. I would love it if you could rate and review this podcast, 5 stars only, to help make this podcast easier for other women with HA to find it. And last thing, nothing from this show should be taken as medical advice. Please seek the advice of your physician. The concept of getting your period back is easy, but why is making the commitment so hard? Why does it take so long to get to a point where you're confident enough in the process to go for it? Well, for a lot of reasons, and breaking down those reasons that hold us back is one of my main missions. And that is why I created the 7-day HA Recovery Commitment Challenge. It's a completely free challenge that is 100% inside of email. So you can start your 7 days today. You don't have to wait for the beginning of this challenge. And each day, I send you a new challenge, complete with action items and mindset shifts to help you work through all of the key issues I see that hold us back from recovery. So topics inside of the email challenge include understanding why your period is missing, how to build solid, healthy, caloric-dense meals to ensure that you're getting the nutrition that you need, how to get your support network on board with you, not just letting your friends and family and partner know like what's happening, but actually enrolling them in to help you. Lifestyle factors that could be impacting your ability to recover, and of course, the mindset factors and shifts that you need to make along the way. The goal of this challenge is that after 7 days, you'll be feeling knowledgeable, equipped, and inspired to do what you really know that you need to do to get your period back. So, are you ready? Go to 7daychallenge.hapodcast.com or head to the show notes for the link. That's 7daychallenge.hapodcast.com. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the HA podcast. I am joined today by Olivia Park. She's a female health and performance coach, and she is also a member of the HA Society. Cool. And it's been fun just to we have a mix of people in there, some who are still, passionate about their health and well, not health, that's the wrong word, but their performance and training passions, right? And they don't want to let it go. And that's a huge conversation in this space at the moment, is like, can I still enjoy exercise after recovery or during recovery or whatever? And I get asked about that all the time. I talk about it a lot. So I'm excited to have Olivia on because this is her jam. This is what she does. She's really passionate about it. So welcome to the show, Olivia.
Thanks, Danny. Nice to be here. Very cool to be here.
Yeah. That was my high-level intro of you. What else would you tell people about yourself that's important to know for the context of today's show?
Yeah, so I am a female health and performance coach. I've been in the fitness industry for a long time. I started, you can hear by my accent, I'm actually from New Zealand, but I live in South Korea and I've been in Asia for maybe about 7 years now. And prior to this, I was in New Zealand, obviously, and that's where I started my career. So I've been in the industry for over 10 years. And I was in person for a long time and also coaching CrossFit for a long time. And then when we moved from Taiwan to South Korea a few years ago, I actually went fully online. So I work with women one-on-one, and I also have a group training program that is specific to women, like a strength and conditioning program. And I have been an athlete myself. So I competed in bodybuilding for a long time and then moved into CrossFit, competed in that. I ended up winning the Fittest in Taiwan in 2017.
Oh, did you?
And
was that when they brought in like the new kind of structure?
no, that was before. That was before that. Yeah. So this is still when it was kind of like regionals and stuff. Yeah. And then after that, I kind of stopped competing because I realized that my health was a mess and I needed to do a lot of work to kind of fix my body and, well, get it healthy, and also my relationship with training and nutrition and stuff like that. So it was kind of like getting to that point. I did a couple more competitions after that year, but then I stopped and really pulled back to work on my own health. And I've also worked with quite a number of women who've come from that same place as well. And so this journey with hypothalamic amenorrhea has been something that's been going on for a really, really long time for me. Before we recorded, I said that it was, over 10 years ago that I went to an endocrinologist and said, I don't have a period, like something must be going on. And prior to that, I'd gone off the pill, which I'd been on since I was 14 years old for my skin. And then the GP that I went to said, well, you're going to have to go back on the pill because that's the only way you're going to get a period back, which I wasn't prepared to do because I just wanted to let my body kind of, regulate. And when I saw that endocrinologist, she said to me, her main kind of focus at coming at me was with fertility. And this was over 10 years ago. Like, I was not interested in getting pregnant then. I was like in the middle of competing in bodybuilding and it was just not going to happen. But she told me that I just had to change my whole life. She told me I had to change my career. I had to stop training. I had to stop competing. And so I put my head in the sand and ignored everything that she said because of course I wasn't going to turn my life around. And I love my job. So I carried on for a number of years, just being completely under-recovered until around about 2017, where I decided that I needed to make some changes.
Yeah. Okay. I want to know what the changes were and how because I have a hunch, right, that your journey has been a little bit different to how a lot of people talk about the typical like all-in situation. So tell me about making the changes and what you tried, what worked, what didn't work.
Yeah. So I actually got my period back in January this year. So January 2021. Yeah. Yeah. And so it had been, over 10 years without it. And I would say actually it had been longer than that. So that was when I came off the pill and I didn't get it back. But I think that it probably would have been a little bit longer than that just because of training and stuff like that. And so when I got it in January, it was the first time I'd had a natural period since I was 14 years old. So it was pretty incredible. But when I decided that I needed to make some changes, it was really, I was starting to dig more into female specific kind of training and health, learning more about the menstrual cycle and stuff like that around about 2016. And so that was when I was really starting to think, okay, like this isn't right for me, like something is going on. But I was so wrapped up in my identity as an athlete, as a coach, and the fear of leaving any of that behind. You know, would people not think that I was a good coach? Would people think that I'd let myself go? Would people think that I wasn't qualified if I didn't look like that, you know? So
Yeah.
I just had so much internal stuff going on that I had to work through. And so when I decided that I was going to stop competing, I pulled back a little bit. I changed my training. So I stopped doing kind of like CrossFit and moved into more kind of like functional bodybuilding stuff. But I was still training a lot, you know, and it truly is a passion of mine, you know, training. Obviously, it's what I do. And so that was really hard to kind of detach from. It was very, very murky of like, what is actually coming from the external and what is actually coming from the internal. And so over these years, it's been honestly a lot of like unpacking, so much unpacking my identity, a lot of like therapy, and understanding this stuff, a lot of work. And so I started changing my training a little bit, started eating more, I started gaining more weight, and I had people in my corner along the way because I just couldn't do it on my own. And then, so that was kind of like quasi recovery, you know, this place where a lot of people sit for a long time. Yeah. And then last year, it was in November, I think, I actually decided to go like all in. I do quotation marks here. And what I mean by my process of all in was I was like, okay, cool, like 2,500 calories. Like that's like the blanket thing, which isn't true for everybody, right? But that's what I decided to do. And I was still kind of working out. I just cut it down slowly, but it was really the training that was the last piece for me. It wasn't hard to eat more, but it was the training that was really difficult, because I was like, how can I not be doing this? It's like, it's what I do. It's my livelihood. Like people see me training, and the fittest in Taiwan, you know, I was like, just really crazy.
Like, eating is something you're already doing. So you're just increasing it. But the exercise is being decreased, and it's very, I totally relate. Like even today, like to this day, I still have a reaction, a negative reaction to when I don't get a workout in on the days that I allow myself to work out, you know. I don't train like an athlete anymore, but I still have feelings around not getting a workout in, that I have the skills and tools now to like move past that. But in the very beginning, it feels very difficult.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, even to cancel my gym membership, I mean, that was just like, what? Like, I don't have a gym membership? That felt really weird. But I actually went through IVF last year. So in, November, December, we went through IVF, and that was kind of, obviously it didn't work, but that was a more of a catalyst for me to be like, okay, I'm literally hiding. Like I can't hide. Like I have to do something different here. And it was also the expense of that. And I was like, this is crazy that I know that I can get my period back. I mean, there was obviously doubt because I hadn't had it for so long, but I was just like, I'm sure that I can. And to spend all of that money on IVF when it's like, surely I can do this naturally. And so that was kind of the catalyst for me to go like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to do this. And it was hard, like to go through IVF and HA at the same time. Like that was something that was so, I felt very alone with that because nobody could understand that. You know, I think that going through IVF is really challenging anyway, but going through HA, and that's why the HA Society is so impactful, because it's like nobody, if you haven't been through it, it's really hard to understand. And so, because it's so complex and so layered.
Are you listening to this show hoping to get some golden nuggets to help you on your way to recovery? Well, great. I hope that you find them, because that is exactly what this show is for. But If you really want to take your recovery all the way, completely commit and get on track with your goals, whether they be finally feeling overall healthy, finally getting pregnant, or finally getting back to training, you'll want to join us inside of the HA Society. Not only is this the perfect community to ask questions and get your support and the accountability that you so often need during these uphill battles with body image and understanding nutrition and incorporating exercise, but it's also a hub of exclusive resources for HAs. All of the HA podcast episodes are released in advance and completely ad-free, so you can listen on the go to the raw, unedited versions uninterrupted. All of the one-on-one coaching calls, of which we have 2 a week in different time zones, are uploaded to our private podcast feed so that you can listen to events with practitioners and the past community calls as though they were bonus podcast episodes, because I know how much you love to listen to this kind of stuff. And in these calls, we cover requested topics like overcoming the weight gain fears, communicating with friends and family about our HA, diving into how HA works, and debunking the imposter syndrome that so many of us have around this diagnosis. There's also an entire resources section with lectures, workshops, and training from the past events that are hosted by experts like Sarah Liz King, Laura Lyons, Kaylee McDevitt, Holly Dunn, and many more. As a member, you also get direct access to myself and Coach Ashley in the DMs. So if you have personal questions or need individualized advice about your recovery, we're in there answering your questions in the DMs, as are all of our other members in the group who impress me week after week with how they show up for each other. It's incredible. It's like women are just all becoming mini coaches for each other. It's so good. The HA Society is really the place to be if you're going through recovery, no matter what stage you're at. Whether you have HA or you've got a few recovery periods, we have your back and we're all your new best friends. So come and meet us at thehasociety.com/join. That's thehasociety.com/join, and the link is in the show notes for you. Okay, on with the show.
And so that was really challenging, but then my period actually came back really quickly. And with the changes with exercise, I was actually still doing bodyweight stuff. I was actually still riding my assault bike, really easy, still doing bodyweight stuff, because when I strip all of that back, and this is all the internal work, right? And it's like a lot of what I talk about within my coaching is that we do, we work out and we work in. And so for me then to like go into exercise was all about intention setting. It's like, okay, I'm doing this because it truly makes me feel really good. And it's completely void of anything external because I'm not trying to change anything. I'm not chasing fitness. I'm not chasing strength. It's literally because moving my body through space just is a really beautiful thing for me to do. And so I actually didn't give up exercise completely, which I think is kind of different to a lot of people. And I think that the biggest thing for me was the way that I was approaching it. So just intention setting every single time, and just being so aware and so in tune with my body and making changes and stuff like that. But and then I got my period pretty quickly. So I went sort of like my all-in process, like end of November, and then I got my period in January, and it was amazing.
So amazing, so exciting. I feel kind of similar. I also talk about having done some exercise throughout my whole process, which is unusual and sure might not work for everyone, but for people who have been training for a really long time, everyone's unique, and you do have to do a very specific and thorough kind of background on each person, right? So you were training like an athlete, you just needed to dial some shit in, and in order to do that, you needed to step back, but your body is conditioned in a certain way to do this, and it should cycle. Whereas we see a lot of people go from, I guess, like a non-athletic background to starving themselves and training really hard. And in that case, we might see it makes more sense as a prescription to like stop what you're doing right now. Maybe, and even still, then maybe it's very specific. And so it makes sense, your story, it makes sense, my story. Okay, there's a lot of people listening who are keen to hear about getting your period back and still continuing to exercise because they resonate with this story. They hear themselves in your story, which is great. So what are some of the like mental challenges? We talked about giving up exercise, right? But working in the wellness industry, you know, for example, what was one of the biggest hurdles to get through there? Because it's so hard to recover in a fitness environment.
Yes. And so for me, for many years, I carried like this massive shame because I'm a female health and performance coach. So although I have my own business, I also teach alongside Nadia Norman, who is in Australia, teaching her female health and performance course. And so that is for trainers and coaches, and we teach on how to work with women. And so that's a lot to do with like physiology and like menstrual cycle, like stages and phases of, women and training women and, physiological load and stuff like that. And so for me, I have been teaching on this stuff for a really long time, but I was still in it and I didn't have a period. And so for many years, I just held like a really, really deep shame because I was teaching this stuff, but I was still struggling. And so it was almost like when I did finally decide to do it, when I got my period back in January, it was the relief of like, wow, my body can do this. Like, this is incredible. And honestly, it's like, it was the biggest achievement I've ever had in my whole life, with sporting achievements and everything. Like getting my period back was like 100% the best thing in the world. And what it also gave me was like, oh my gosh, I can let the shame go now. Like I'm truly embodying the things that I teach now. And so that was a really big thing for me. And I think that for fitness professionals, like that is something to kind of hold on to as well. It's like, we have an opportunity to truly, as a collective, like change the face of the fitness industry from like fitness culture to what is true fitness and true health. And this is where I do think that as fitness professionals, we have a responsibility because there is just so much smoke and mirrors in the industry. And although our vulnerability does need to be earned, and it doesn't mean that we share everything about our lives, but I do think the struggle is important, so that people who are not in the industry but do it as a hobby or an interest or something like that, they can be like, okay, cool, like I can talk about this as well, or this is available for me, like it doesn't have to be like this. So I think that is a really important thing, that as a collective, that vulnerability that is shared from industry professionals and like talking about it is super important. But something that you would hear all the time, Danny, because I know that people say this, and I've had this as well from clients, is, I'm just so worried about losing all the strength and the fitness that I have built, right? And I had that fear as well, but you don't lose it. Like, and especially if you've been training for a long time, like your body is so amazing and it remembers. Like the more trained you are, the more fitness and strength, motor control, like all of that stuff you actually hold on to. And it doesn't take long to actually get that back. But I think it is really important to do the work to come to a place of like accepting that things probably won't look like what they did look like. But with this whole process is this incredible opportunity to develop a better relationship with exercise. And I think that is something that is so powerful for everybody, that especially fitness professionals, that they can go from living this, like being in this place of like loving it and teaching it, but then also maybe feeling a whole lot of like expectations and assumptions and stuff like that of what it should look like or what they should look like, to go through this process and heal themselves. They then get the opportunity to help other people truly heal when they are coming from a place of real truth with the relationship that they have with exercise. And so I think it's more of an opportunity for women that might be struggling with HA who are fitness professionals, rather than something that is going to be, you know, negatively impacting like their business or people wanting to work with them. It takes a lot of bravery, and people see that, you know.
Yeah, that I love that. That's exactly how I have described it to other like fitness professionals that I'll talk to, is that it's an opportunity and it's a responsibility. Like I know, think about if you were a doctor and a new science came out that just like disproved something that you have been telling people because that was what your belief was. You don't just be like, oh my God, I have to quit being a doctor because this new information has countered things I've said in the past. No, you just adapt. You just go, okay, shit, did the best I could with the information I had at the time. And moving forward, this is what I want to teach now. And I feel like it's very similar, but like, as you're saying, in the wellness industry, it's like be jacked and lean or go home. And there's no space for anything else. And if you have a condition, situation, health situation that you need to work on, and it means you have to step away from being jacked and lean, like you're not welcome here. It's all stupid. And your clients, I guess they're all called, they're looking to you for information, and the only information they're getting is silly things from the internet and infomercials and gym ads, right? It's not their fault. So yes, maybe you do feel a bit uncomfortable getting clients and not feeling like you quote unquote look the part, but you know, we need to be actively working to change that narrative. By you giving into that and accepting that, you're perpetuating it. And don't you want to be someone who is at the forefront of change? We all want that, but you know, when it comes to this opportunity to take it and do it and speak up, we're scared and we don't want to do it. But it's like, oh, wouldn't it be so great to, you know, advocate for change? But, you know, I can't do that because I'm me.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You know, and I think that there's a couple of things like with this. It's like, yeah, I mean, that sounds awesome. Like that sounds really cool. But also when you haven't, it's like, I mean, if you haven't gone through something, it's like, how can I possibly trust that this is true, you know? And that's what I felt. It's like, when I started this, I was like, how can I actually trust that I'm going to get my period back? Like every single day, I was like, what if I don't? Yeah. And I was like, I literally haven't had a period for over a decade. Like, how am I possibly going to make this be true? And in that time, it's like, you're not training, you're not working out, you're gaining weight, you're having to eat a lot, which I think was a really cool thing to explore anyway. But you're gaining weight, like your body is changing. I think at the initial first couple of weeks, it's like, okay, cool. Like, yes, I'm doing this and amazing. I'm going to like try these foods that I might have had rules around or something like that. But then your body starts to catch up with you, right? And I think that is when it's like really, really hard to trust that, first of all, you can get your period back. And secondly, that it's okay that you're doing this and you are a fitness professional. Because like you said, there is literally every single thing in your face telling you that you're doing the wrong thing.
It makes sense that you would have wound up having to rectify this issue. It's logical.
100%. And it's so weird because it's like, you think that the solution is not what you're doing, but that's actually, I mean, you think the solution is something, but that's actually your problem. And so, like you said, it's just like continuing to perpetuate it. And that's what we do with so many things in our lives, right? It's like we think the solution is a solution, but it's actually the problem. And so it is so hard. It is so hard to trust. And I just had to say to myself every day, like, I just had to say to myself, I am healthy, my body is safe. I am healthy, my body is safe. And I just had to keep going. But when I got my period, I was like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense now. But it is so hard to trust. It is so hard to trust that you can come out on the other side. And I honestly, I wrote something about this the other day, I think a post or something. But I truly believed that in like December, I was like, I'm never going to be able to train again. Like, I'm never going to be able to work out again.
It's always the month before it happens, or like shortly before it happens.
And now I just had another period, and that was like a 33-day cycle. So it's gotten shorter and shorter and shorter, which is really awesome. Yeah. And I'm back training, you know, like yesterday I was running, I was lifting, I'm back doing Ollie lifting. And of course it looks very different, but I want it to look different now, because the way that I see it now and the way that I go into my workouts is for pure love, like pure love. And I think that that's something that's really important. Like we kind of talked about before, is like, there is this amazing opportunity to release yourself from assumptions and judgments of fitness. Like, this is incredible. And on the other side of this is this very pure and very true relationship that you can have with fitness for fitness, you know, and for no other reason than just that. And so you can still go for like performance goals and stuff like that, but it can truly come from this place of like internal rather it being external. Because I think that one of the things as well is that women that have maybe have this kind of like obsession with exercise, whether they're in the industry or not, that and that being about their body, it can quickly turn into obsession with performance. And so I think that also, you know, and we see that from like CrossFit, right? If someone started at the gym and they're like, okay, cool, like starting with the elliptical, and then maybe they go into the weights room and it's like, oh, wow, okay, like lifting weights is pretty cool. And then it's like, wow, CrossFit, okay, like what can my body do? And that is still an obsession, right? Even though it's not about body, maybe, but performance. But I mean,
and how often, let's be real, like how often people do CrossFit and then, you know,
totally.
It very quickly becomes, well, I want to look like I do CrossFit.
100%, right? And it goes like this, like, okay, aesthetics and then performance. And then it's this murky place of like aesthetics and performance. And that is a crazy place to be. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But now, like after going through this process, like truly having respect and truly having appreciation for your body healing itself and you doing the mental work that comes along with that, now you can go back to exercise with like, oh my gosh, like what can I do? But that coming from a very, very true place from, you know, what your values are and how fitness fits into your values and being led by that, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I always love seeing people go back into it actually fed now and actually willing to take rest days because they get it now. And so their performance improves because they have energy. It's really cool. What do you say to people who are in that period of time where they're struggling to trust right now?
Oh my gosh. Something that I do get them to think about is like something that they've done in the past where they truly didn't believe they could do something or they didn't trust in, and then they did, and then they achieved that thing or something. I think that looking for other evidence to go against the thing is really important to show that you actually can do something as like a way to be like, okay, I really struggled with this, but I got through it. And even though this is a really, really big thing, it's having that other kind of evidence, not going against it, but that you can do really hard things is important. I also think that talking about it, because shame loves to live in the shadows, right? And so when we talk about it and like reaching out and asking for support and you know, again, like that's why the HA Society is so cool, because there are people that actually get it, you know, because most women that are going through HA, people around them don't really understand that, what it's like, that it's not just about eating more and stopping exercise. It's about your whole, it's like reevaluating your whole identity, if you do have that identity with fitness, and also going through body changes, like dealing with body image, like unpacking all of that, like where did that come from for you, you know, childhood and stuff like that. Oh my gosh. And so one of the key things is actually talking about it. So speaking about the struggle, like obviously with people that have earned, you know, your vulnerability and you trust, but I found that was really helpful for me as well, is to just talk about it so that it's not kind of like festering inside, and having just a really, really good support system. Because I mean, trusting yourself when you don't believe that something might happen, or that everything, it feels negative around the thing, is just so challenging. So talking about it, I think is a really important thing.
Yeah, totally agree. That's like one of the main reasons I started the society in general, was for these community calls, because the people around you, for some reason, it feels like no one else is suffering with this until, you know, you start talking about it. I can't tell you the amount of times we've had someone say like, oh, I posted about it on Instagram, or I finally, I told people at my gym about this, and someone said, oh, hey, I don't have my period either. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. Like, you're not alone. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and other people want to talk about it, and other people need to be like let in on the big dirty secret of the fitness industry. So it helps. Yeah,
totally. And I mean, I had that as well, you know, when I started to talk about it more in my own sort of journey with that. So many women who are also coaches and trainers were reaching out and just being like, oh my gosh, this is what is happening for me right now. I really don't know what to do. And there is just, I mean, especially with fitness professionals, there's so much shame. It's just like shame, you know, from all avenues. And it's really hard. I think that I was also lucky because I'd gone online. So I think that made it a lot easier. And I keep saying to my husband, man, if I was doing this and I was in a gym, it would be much more challenging. So those women that are going through that and are actually working in a gym, then there's a lot more to that, and it is a lot more challenging. But also with that is like members and your clients like seeing effort, you know, like seeing how much you're respecting yourself to go through this process, and how much effort you're putting in, and what is actually possible, and what true health is. I think that this is it, you know, like in the industry, people are always talking about health and stuff like that, but it's like, but really? I mean, really, because health is not a look, which we know. And so for you to go through this process, like anyone who's listening, for you to go through this process, like you're truly showing your clients and the people around you how much you appreciate, you know, health for yourself. And that's a truly inspiring thing, you know, more so than, I don't know, talking about how hard you train or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking was, you know, imagine there's two scenarios where you're in the gym and your client's like, oh, tell me about like what you do to work out. Oh, I work out 7 days a week and blah, blah, blah. And you just like present this unattainable, unrealistic, unhealthy thing to them. And that is one of the things that's going to catalyst them down some messed up path. Whereas if you were talking to your trainer and they asked you that question, to your client, and they asked you that question, and you said, oh, you know, I work out 4 days a week. I take full rest days. I make sure I eat a bunch. Like, you presented them with something that was healthy and reasonable, particularly for the average person, you might save a life.
100%. And this is a thing, right? Is like really, that glorification of like healthy eating and clean eating and like working out so hard. It's like, holy smokes. Like imagine if we actually glorified having rest and being well fed. It's like when my clients are talking about going into workouts, like, and they crush it because they had like a really good meal before and they're eating more and they understand the science of rest. They understand the science of, adaptation. Education's a really big thing with what I do. It's like, I mean, that stuff's amazing. And this is it. Like we can be well fed, we can be well rested, and we can make gains. Like this is the thing that
that's
women
how
need
you
to
make
understand.
them.
100%, right? That it doesn't need to be so hard. It doesn't need to be so hard. But that comes from first deciding that you want to have a better relationship with yourself, with exercise and food. And that's the hardest thing. And just starting to take the action towards that.
Well, let's talk about action. Let's get like a little bit tangible for some people. Trying to recover or being in recovery, but continuing to train. What are some tactical things or processes or even just like thought processes that you recommend that people do in this particular situation?
Yeah, so I think that I've sort of mentioned it a couple of times before, but like intention setting is huge. So there's three kind of pieces to this, and this is sort of how things kind of work in my coaching practice. Is when I'm talking about training and thinking about training, there's three kind of pillars to it, and it is intention, intensity, and intuition. And until we understand intention and intention and intensity, we can't really understand intuition because, like we said at the beginning or before we started recording, is like your intuition is going to want to go hard, or it's going to want to do all the things. And so we first have to understand those other two things first. And so with intention, something that I encourage everybody to, like my clients to do, and what I do myself and did myself through that recovery process, was with every single workout, I would set an intention. And so I would say, okay, like my intention is to keep my heart rate at this, or it could be my intention is to move to feel good. If I feel any struggle, then I'm going to change direction. I'm going to change what I'm doing. Or it could be I'm moving because this is really helpful for my body, but I don't need to do any more than that. Like it doesn't have to be, or my intention is not to chase fitness right now. I'm literally just moving. And so I think that intention with every single workout was like, it gives you a plan, because otherwise if you're going into it like, oh, I don't really know how I'm navigating this. Like I want to go really hard, but I know I shouldn't, but I want to lift the weight, but I know that that's not going to be helpful for me. Then it's just like this crazy kind of mind game that you're playing with yourself. And so I think that is a really important thing first. The second thing is intensity. And so this is probably what got most of us to where we were anyway, is not understanding how to modulate intensity. And this is true for, in recovery and outside of recovery, like just normal training anyway, that we need to have times during, the week with our exercise where we're doing like, maybe a little bit harder, not in recovery, but, harder and then moderate and then easy and then rest. Right. And so
yeah, these people aren't tapering like ever.
Yeah. And so it's not even just like going hard and then having a deload week, right? I mean, it's like throughout your week, it's about working in different intensities, so that also you're actually creating like a bigger range of fitness as well. It's not going 100% all the time. And so I think that is a really important thing as well, is understanding like different modes of intensity. And so going through recovery, it's like you actually are going to be, on the like lower end of intensity, obviously, but knowing that when you come back, than modulating as a way to keep yourself healthy and keep your period. And there are lots of practical things that, you know, can go with that, as like program design, and actual, you know, periodization and stuff like that. And then the other thing is intuition. And so this is more like auto-regulation or self-regulation. And so auto-regulation is a framework for training where you're working at the intensity of what you're actually capable of that day. And self-regulation within that is like you looking at your unique stuff and layering that within the auto-regulation protocol. So it's like, okay, like, how did I sleep? Like, how am I actually feeling? How is my energy? How is my mood? You know, all of these kind of things, and then layering that. So I think that kind of stuff is more sort of like, once you have had those 3 recovery periods, and you are thinking about bringing exercise in, then starting to think about these things. But through that recovery process, yeah, I mean, everybody handles stress differently, right? So a stress bucket, the individual stress bucket that we have is, if someone has got a really stressful job, has got children, has got a lot of stuff going on, then exercise is probably going to be lower in recovery. You know, it might, like we said, like have to be nothing. But for people that may have a little bit more space, then maybe you can handle, you know, doing the body weight stuff, and doing a little bit more because your stress bucket isn't as full. And so that's the thing that we're constantly trying to manage, right?
Love it. Yes. Basically constantly assessing like, yeah, what your intention is, what your intensity is, what you can handle. And I think we're all capable of getting to that place. And the thing that we have to be always, like, even you, even me, are always checking in on is like, are these fundamentals? Super easy to kind of like slip away and add a little bit more intensity and add another little bit of day of training, or skip a meal or something. And when I talk to girls who are trying to recover while exercising, all the little things that you do around your training as well become, you know, they're so much more important now, because I think a big piece of like the all-in method, right, is let's throw everything at the wall because we know it'll work. Okay. And that's great. But so if you're going to choose to not throw everything at the wall, you have to be really intentional. And you have, like, with everything from how you're structuring your training to how you're living your life outside of it. That's just kind of what came up for me while you were talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now I would never train without having like 2 meals. So that is really important. And then eating straight away afterwards, you know, very mindful of my caffeine as well. And I mean, I'm lucky because I am very knowledgeable about program design. You know, it's like what I do. And so I'm able to be very fluid with what I do. But I think also it's like, and there are lots of practical things with that. You know, it's like, if you're not feeling that good and you go into the gym to like lift and you're not feeling good, it's like, man, there's no shame in like sitting on a machine. You know, it's like, do a chest press machine instead of like a barbell bench press, you know, but things like that can be done to actually support you along the way. But an individual's physiological load is just going to be so different. And so it's about understanding what your physiological load is and what your MRV, so your maximum recovery volume, right? And the thing is as well is that even if you do love fitness and you love working out and you love training, like that's what you tell yourself, it's like, yes, and, you know, there can be other stuff for you as well. So it's like, for me now, I remember someone said to me a few years ago, it was another coach who said, what else do you do? Like, what else do you do? And I was just like, holy smokes. And that was actually a massive catalyst as well. Cause I was like, oh my gosh.
I had that happen as well. What else are you into?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it was really painful. And, you know, I didn't have a social life. It was just like, everything was training. And so now I'm back like training, relatively hard, making progress again. I'm like building up my strength again. But I also am I skateboard a lot. Like I love skateboarding. I am back into loving music. For so many years, I was like, music for me was just drum and bass to get me through my workouts. And now I've rekindled my passion for music. And lots of other kind of things that I'm doing as well as my training, realizing that you can still perform, you can still be really interested in fitness and like make gains and like, get after it, but you can do that well fed, and you can do that with health, and you can do that with other interests as well. And I think that is a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, I do. I think that's an important piece, is like, feeding your soul and opening up your life and your interests and your brain to other things. Because I mean, I can't explain why. It just is. It's just really, really cool. What would you say then is the biggest difference now in your training? And, maybe you've answered it. Maybe you're like, oh, my intention and my intensity. But is there anything else that's big that, that's a big difference between how you train today versus how you did back then? And maybe this is literally just a recap summary of everything you just said. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's two things with it. So first of all, the practical of how I train is that, I'm not doing, I do have a desire to compete in masters with CrossFit. So I am competitive, I really like that, but it's more the process of that I enjoy. But whether I do, I'm not sure. We're about to go through IVF again, and that's still, that's important to us. I'm a little bit older, and so, yeah. But my training is, it's kind of the same as before I went into like the all in November last year. So functional bodybuilding, Olympic lifting, and CrossFit. Like it's very much like a hybrid sort of thing. But I'm not doing Fran. I'm not doing barbell thrusters and stuff like that. And I honestly don't want to, because it just feels hard. And even though what I do is challenging, there's like a difference between hard and challenging, right? And we don't have to make things hard for things to be effective. And it's like when we're actually challenging ourselves in a way that's supportive, that's when we can actually make progress. It doesn't have to be, and that's that intensity piece, right? It doesn't need to be high intensity. It can be a challenge, and you can not even sweat and you can make progress, So, yeah. And I love that. Like, I love that I train in a way that truly supports me, and I'm getting stronger and I'm getting fitter. And so much of that is to do with how I approach recovery. So, there is that. The second thing is being able to work out free of anything else. So when I first went back to the gym when I was ready, and I wanted to kind of like experiment with this, and also through recovery, there was still a lot of justification. So it's like, I look like this because I'm doing this thing, and feeling like I had to explain to people. And even going back to the gym recently, it's also kind of challenging because I'm in a place where they don't speak English. And so I'm the only foreigner in this gym. And so I found that kind of hard, because I just wanted to say to them, I can do more than this, like I am stronger than this. I used to do this, and I used to look like this. Like I found that story was coming up for me a lot. But I could see it and I could observe it and be like, okay, cool, that's interesting. But I don't have to act on any of that. And so there was nothing that I did differently, right? So it could have been in the past, I would train harder, or like, I don't know, do something different to try and prove my fitness, or prove that I am a good coach because I'm fit and strong, or something like this. But there's none of that. And so I think that is a really cool thing, to be able to observe those thoughts. Like I have really bad, like yesterday I had a really, really bad body image day. Like It was really hard. And we have those days, but I can see those thoughts and feel those emotions and feel the hard stuff, but it doesn't take me away from my values with health and the way that I want to approach fitness and how that fits into that bigger system of the person I want to be and how I want to live my life. And so I think that that is one of the biggest things, is that I can have these hard thoughts and these difficult thoughts and, you know, wanting to justify things and maybe wanting to go back to what I was doing or, you know, whatever, but I never act on them. And I think that that is where empowerment with this is, right? When we can have that skill to be able to let that stuff come in, but then not change our course and stay on that. And that is what true freedom is, I think, with, you know, fitness and exercise and all of this and body image and stuff.
Cool. I love it. I had like a random question come up from just the beginning of when you started speaking. Do you track your cycles now?
Yes. So I was like, yeah, so it's gone down. It was like 50 days and then like 48 days and 45 days. And it's 30, the last one was 33 days. And so that's really cool that it's kind of like sort of normalizing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you just track the length or you track all of the phases and ovulation as well?
Yeah. So I do. And I think that we're actually going to, for this ovulation, we're actually going to go and get a scan done just to make sure that it is actually happening. Yeah, because we are going to try IVF again. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And I love it. It's amazing. Like, it is amazing to be able to train with all of that information now. Like,
I think it's
and
very
I truly
important.
feel like, yeah, I truly feel like a woman, you know, but also just on that, there is a lot of stuff out there now about training with your cycle and like female phase training. And although this is something that I teach, we do have to remember that, again, it's like very, very, very individual. And there's a lot of stuff out there that says like, do this in your luteal phase or do this in your follicular phase and stuff like that. And it's such a blanket kind of statement. And it's almost like the conversations around that have almost become kind of like trendy or like buzzwordy and stuff, you know, like
I fully agree. I was like, oh my God, train with your cycle. Okay. Yeah.
It's so
I think it's like,
yeah.
I would rather, and maybe I should do this, like write an article on this, like how to assess what you need for your cycle versus like
100%.
following this blanket recommendation of like chill out in your luteal phase.
Oh my gosh, like do yoga, like go for long walks in your luteal phase. It's like, no, like we can still do whatever we want to do, you know? I mean, if you want to train. If you don't want to, it's fine. But and that's where having the education is so important, right? Is like when you have education about your body, like the actual physiology, and also understanding the process of like training and stuff, then you layer yourself on, you know, it's like the big rocks still are the same, like, especially with recovery, like lifestyle and then program design, like the big rocks still stay. And then we layer female physiology and our own experience on top of that. And that's why tracking is just so crucial.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I think is really the most impactful is just how, when you understand how your cycle affects you and your energy levels and you individually as a person, you can just have reasonable GD expectations, because so much of our stress in an HA state comes from like, oh my God, I had a shitty session. Like, why? Oh, I'm going backwards. I'm going backwards. I shouldn't feel tired today, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it, if you're charting while you're training, you can explain a lot about why you feel the way you feel.
Totally. And that's why I say to my clients, like the way that we look at your menstrual cycle is it's an energy management tool. It's not about training with your cycle. It's like, it's your whole life. You're a 360-degree human. You know, this is an energy management tool. And we don't train in a vacuum. So it's like, yeah, again, it's like, what is your physiological load? And, you know, when you're in your luteal phase, maybe that physiological load is more because anxiety might be a little bit higher for you. You know, your ability to manage your emotions is harder, and then that's going to impact your training and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's definitely more of an energy thing rather than a specific training tool.
Yeah. Cool. This was really fun. I hope that you guys listening kind of got something out of just sitting in on this conversation and like nodding your head along and feeling maybe even encouraged that if you're a fitness professional, you're right where you need to be. It makes total sense you're here. This is an opportunity for you. And if you're not a fitness professional, but you're someone who still really values training and exercise, you know, there's no judgment over here from me or Olivia. We're pumped for you. And the importance is in figuring out what you need to recover and figuring out how you can stay that way with your exercise. And you just have to be open to it not looking how you thought it was going to look now and down the track, and be open to it actually being better than you thought it could be.
Yeah.
Love it.
100%.
Where can people learn more from you, learn about working with you if that's something of interest to them? How can they work with you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I am pretty active on Instagram, and so my handle is Olivia Park Coach. My website is Olivia Park Coaching, and I do one-on-one individualized program design, and also like lifestyle and stuff, and also my female-specific strength and conditioning program called Grit and Grace. And yeah, that's it.
I should try that. Like after I have this baby.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. Go check out Liv. Links in the show notes as well. And I'll see all of you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
If you love hosting over the holidays, swap out your old HVAC filter with a Filtrete air filter. It can help clear away particles from all your holiday cooking. Look for Filtrete air filters at a retailer near you. Let's clear the air.
Finally, a bed that senses snoring and automatically responds. Meet the Ergo Smart Base from Tempur-Pedic, our first system that detects snoring, then automatically adjusts by raising the bed. Get your best sleep all night, every night. Now, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets during the Tempur-Pedic Black Friday event. Get full offer details at Tempur-Pedic.com.